It's hard work, and sometimes we forget. Getting up, putting that uniform on, going to that board meeting, putting that volunteer vest on, these are all these small acts of compassion and heroism, and we just don't take enough time to really understand how true that is. So I hope everybody identifies how much of a heroic effort that you are displaying by being here and by dedicating any portion of your life or attention to animals and animals in need in our shelters. So I think it's amazing. So listen, sometimes in this field, we really have to work together, don't we? And we're in Florida, and I'm with two amazing powerhouse leaders here. I'm at one of the Florida power tables right now, and I'm really excited to talk to the two of you. So, Denise specifically, you've been in Florida doing collaborative work for a long time, and many of us, myself included, and many in the cafe out here as well that might be lurking on our conversation, have learned a lot from you. But a lot of really important collaborative work started here in Florida and in Jacksonville, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, so walk us through that a little bit.
Sure. I came to Jacksonville in 2011.
Yep.
And the community had been working towards achieving no-kill and doing some really progressive work for about 10 years.
Right.
And had been involved in that in a different way in their early years. When I arrived, though, things had kind of stalled out.
Right.
Not due to any particular individual or
so
reason.
So people were
or lack of
meeting, but
effort.
you didn't feel like they had a plateau.
It was stalled and it wasn't moving forward.
Right.
They had all the typical things, and a fire and an economic downturn, and
right.
All those things that
right.
we cyclically have to deal with.
Right.
But they weren't getting anywhere.
Right.
And so somebody really needed to step up and say, hey, how come? What are we doing? What's the holdup? It's been 10 years. What's the date? When are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? Who's going to do it? Who's going to be at the table? And that somebody at that time had to be me,
right.
asking the hard questions. Why aren't we there? What's missing? What else do we need to do? Up until then, there was a lot of nice talk and a lot of people around the table, and
yes.
everybody was very kind, and
sure.
everybody was very focused, but like I said, progress had pretty much come to a halt.
And so I think all of us in trying to change something or maybe institute this, we would hope that everybody's on board right away. So all these people are there. But it sounds like for you, it really started with maybe just a couple, right, of groups coming together. And I'm sure you wanted more groups together, but like, why was that the kind of direction, and how hard was it to say, like, maybe I can't get everybody here right now, but these are the partners I want to work with?
Yeah, actually it was almost the opposite of that, Mark.
Okay.
There were a lot of people around the table.
Right.
And everybody had a voice, and what that became was time consuming.
Right.
And that equitable thing, if you're taking 200 animals in and that's taking in 20,000, do you get the same voice that she does?
Right.
And so we had to have some tough conversations about that so that we weren't being efficient or effective. There was more politicking and talking and all of that than actual focus on what's the prize, what's the goal, where are we going, and how can we narrow this group down so that we could move more efficiently and effectively and get a date set and a timeline set and get that goal accomplished.
Right. So then, taking that kind of 2011 and beyond work in Jacksonville, then over the next decade, it started work all over Florida. So can you walk us through a little bit of that as well?
Sure. Thrilled to say that collaboration in Jacksonville worked, and we were the largest city to achieve no-kill citywide, and that happened in 2014.
And that happened in 2014?
Happened in 2014. And in tandem with all of that, we were building a new shelter, because what some of you may not know is we accomplished that working out of 2 crummy old trailers because our building had burned to the ground 10 years earlier. Wow. So we were super proud of that accomplishment. We were on the cusp of moving into a new building and said, okay, what's next? What's next? Well, what was next was we attended a best friends conference.
Oh, wow.
When
how about that?
Julie threw the gauntlet down to all of us to plant a no-kill flag. And we said, you know what, I think and of course we'd already done that in Jacksonville.
Right.
But I thought we could take that bigger. And it was that same time that data came out and showed us that Florida was the 4th worst life-saving state in the nation. And that made me mad. I was mad, I was embarrassed, and I said, we're better than this. We need to take the whole state on. We went into strategic planning. Our board was 100% supportive. Our staff was, and so we took the state on.
So then, Annette, you come from child services, and unlike Denise and I, you're relatively new to the field, but you obviously came with a lot of professional experience and leadership experience. So what from child services, and I think you came into the field around 2019, is that right?
2019.
Yeah, so how did that framework, and not having to be like Denise and I have been here for decades, what did that bring to you in this new job? Because now you take on a pretty significant role, even at that time, in one of the largest agencies in the country, in Miami-Dade County Animal Services. So I would just love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, there's a lot of similarities in that it's mission-based, right? So we're so fortunate to work in a mission-based industry where we get to care for the vulnerable, and it really unites the staff, it unites everyone that's working in animal welfare, because we know what our goal is, and that's saving lives and improving the lives of pets. But it's also very hard work, and you hear compassion fatigue a lot, but it's true. Every day feels daunting.
Right.
It feels like you're not doing enough. You don't have enough resources to provide all the care that you want to provide. So what I do with my staff, and I learned this in child welfare, is you have to hold on to the little wins. You have to celebrate that one adoption that you have on a Wednesday morning, because that's what's going to get you through the rest of the week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the thing that's interesting in previous conversations that we've had, some of the things about stuff that we just didn't even have standardized belief in animal welfare was probably kind of shocking to you, right? Like, can you think of something?
So I came from finance first and then child welfare, where everything is very standard.
Right.
We have a scorecard that all of us agree how we're going to measure things, how we're going to collect the data, and what's going to go into each measurement. So here, I had to learn, I had to listen to the experts, and I had to understand the why. Why are we measuring this? What's going into this save rate, and what's the purpose? Why are we making that such an important goal? So speaking to people in the industry really helped me understand, and we're still working through our scorecard and trying to make it really reflective of what we want to attain in each area, which is improving the lives of the pets in our care and the pets in our community.
And so ultimately, probably 2-3 years into taking already a high role in Miami-Dade Animal Services, you're on a family vacation, and the mayor of Miami calls you and says, effective immediately, I need you to be the new director.
That's right.
Of one of the largest animal care agencies in the country. And I'm curious, and I think it would be important for us to share, being that director now, what were significant challenges that you faced right away that you had to kind of take on head on?
That was going to be the third director in as many years. So there was a lot of mistrust within the agency, amongst staff. That was the first obstacle. We also had our highest population ever, which was 813 dogs. That was the immediate challenge. And then there was a lot of mistrust in the community. They didn't value us as the animal welfare agency in Miami-Dade County.
Right.
From the rescues to our partners to the volunteers that came and worked with us, we had to now build trust and grow our partnerships. And I'm lucky that the Humane Society of Greater Miami stepped up and said, we're going to start working together. We're going to do this together. Rescues started calling. And what I did was I opened the door to everyone, because we can't do this work alone. We need everyone in a community to come and help, from the high school students to the rescue organizations that have been there so long, to the staff that was there for decades working, trying to improve things. I knew that we had the staff. We just needed to come together and do it.
Right. And Denise, am I not right in saying sometimes we think everybody else is the problem, but we sometimes get some really hard lessons that we have to look inward, and sometimes we're the problem, right? Have you ever faced that in your time in animal welfare?
Big time. When joining the gang in Jacksonville, and we had narrowed that down to the animal care chief, the executive director of our private clinic, and myself for JHS, because we were the three structured organizations working on it. And so we took a hard dive into the stats. We looked at programs, we looked at relationships, and much to my horror, we were the laggard. We were the reason that had stalled out.
Really?
We were the ones who were not pulling our fair share of the load. And that was a tough pill to swallow. It was like, whoa, it's us? Okay. Right. Now the solutions are different, right? If there was good news in there anywhere, it's like, all right, I can control us, right? I can control us. So if I'm honest and I'm seeing where we're falling short and where we're not pulling our own weight, I have control over changing that and fixing that. But taking honest, hard look in the mirror is just so essential, because that is what we can control. There's always a finger to point and somebody else to blame. Goodness knows that some of that is legitimate. You know, we've got a housing crisis, we've got a tough economy, but you know what? We can't, all of us in this room can't change that.
Right.
And so you can't fall into that victim mode. You need to look in the mirror and say, what can I change? What can I affect? What can I do different? Because that's the thing you've got control over.
So the good news is there's good stuff happening as well. And honestly, in Miami-Dade, there's crazy good stuff happening. So, I mean, please share with Denise and I and our onlookers here about some of the great stuff happening in Miami-Dade County.
I mean, the most exciting thing that happened this past year was that pit bull ban was lifted, completely gone. Yeah. So that was exciting and a huge relief for all of us working in animal welfare. Also in Miami, we're really proud of our TNVR program. We provide about 2,000 surgeries every month.
Right. Amazing. And, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 2,000 surgeries for trap, neuter, vaccinate, return?
TNVR.
Yeah, right.
Another 800 for our spay and neuter for our dogs.
Right.
So we know that this overpopulation crisis is going to be solved with more spay and neuter surgeries. So we're out there doing as much as we can to provide it to be accessible, to be cost efficient.
Right.
And we're doing great work over there. I'm really proud of the medical staff that's really pushing that forward.
As you should be. And Denise, so now, 2024, Florida, you got a lot of stuff cooking. What are you excited about? What are some of the big wins?
Certainly what I'm excited about, one quick big win, we paired up one well-resourced community with a neighboring, more rural community, and it took her less than 6 months to get them over 90%. And she didn't get them over 90% by taking their animals. She got them over 90% by just sharing information with them and sharing some resources with them and helping them see a path out. And that's so rewarding for us, and that is what's exciting in Florida now. If I asked you to all stand up, half the room would stand up. Have you attended Lifesaving U? Have you worked with a partner neighborhood? Have you been the recipient of a grant? Did you go to the summit? I mean, the list is long. And to see that now bearing fruit in that neighbors are asking neighbors for help. People don't feel like they're alone in this. I'm not the tiny rural all by myself out here. I've got this whole network of people that I can call on, whether that's for real help or just inspiration or just help me get through another day, right? But now people who felt very alone don't feel alone. We're no longer myopic and just looking at our problem. We're looking at our state as a whole, and how do we help each other, and how do we become better lifesavers as a state? And it's taking things to another level, and it's starting to percolate.
So on that, I want to take a second. Give me a second, talk amongst yourselves, but I don't know if you know Diane and Darcy. However, I just want to take a second to acknowledge exactly what Denise is talking about. There's two representatives, Orange County Animal Services, close to home here in Orlando, as well as Gulf Coast Humane Society. If I could get Diane and Darcy to come up for a second, I've got a really good surprise for you. Hey! How you doing? Taking the applause. So you are examples of exactly what Denise is talking about, and on behalf of Best Friends, I am really happy to have an Oprah moment here and give you both a $1,000 grant for your organizations to keep doing what you're doing. So, I'm sorry.
Got a record of with spins on the trails we blaze. The walls are closing in, but that's okay, cause I've been waiting all week.
All right, give it up for Diana Karski!
Feels so good, so good. I'm on top of the world, the coolest kid in the neighborhood. So let me be a star for one night, that's right. Sweatbox, laser beam, flashing lights.
So listen, you are the two of the most skilled leaders we have in this movement. And I think, you know, when you say that word, there's certain things I don't know that people always, you know, constantly think about. But before, there's a lot of people, you know, I think paying attention to our conversation over here. And Annette, you first. Like, there's a lot of potential leaders, people that want to step into maybe being a lead volunteer for their rescue group in a new supervisory position, or even like the two of you, like I'm ready to take on a huge leadership position at a shelter or a rescue. What are some advice or some things foundationally to help somebody out there that wants to be here with you on stage in some aspect to really help them on their path?
Well, you can definitely do it from any position you're at right now. Just really take the opportunity to learn. Find a mentor. That's what I would recommend. Number one, today, find yourself a mentor, someone that you respect, someone that's going to be able to teach you to talk things through when you have something going on and you just need to talk it out with someone in order to get to a solution. And then be authentic. You know, people know if you're not, and I don't mean just when you're in front of them walking the floor at your shelter, but always. Staff knows if you value them. They know if you respect them. And if you don't, then you're never gonna get them to go that extra mile for you. And this work is just way too hard for us to be working at below 100%. We need everyone to give their all, and they need a leader that believes in them, that knows that together they're gonna get to their goals.
Well, and please. There's something else earlier in our conversation that you hit on that I really want to highlight as well. You didn't say this, but this is what I heard, and it was really around vulnerability. So many of us, when we get into leadership roles, and certainly big roles like Miami-Dade, you're expected to know everything. You're the expert, you're the leader. But you talked about, you know, having to ask for help, having to ask questions, getting information. It's vulnerability. And so many times people think vulnerability is weakness, right? If I'm a leader, I have to know the answer to every question. I have to have everything figured out. Is that right? Like, vulnerability is such an important leadership trait, and I feel like that's something that's gotten you a long way. Is that fair?
It's fair, and it comes from having the confidence that once someone comes and shows you the things that are wrong, the things that are lacking in your organization, that you have the team and you have the skill set to move it forward. So when I became the director, I knew I didn't know how to run a shelter.
Right.
I wasn't there to pretend that I knew, but I knew there were experts around me that I could reach out to. So I invited best friends in to do an assessment, and I was getting phone calls saying, "You're crazy. What are you doing?
What?
Why are you letting anybody in? You have 813 dogs."
So you're sitting on way too many dogs, and you're bringing best friends?
But you know what? We knew it. We knew we weren't providing the best quality care that we could for those animals. Our save rate was fine, but
Right.
with the quality care, and we all knew. I was listening to my staff, and they were suffering.
Right.
So we had to do something. And the quickest way we could turn things around was for experts to come in and say, these are the things you need to focus on, and this is how you're going to do it. And you know what? After that assessment, I felt like, okay, now I have a path. I know the things I have to concentrate on, and I know we can do it because best friends told me we could do it.
That's amazing. Thank you. All right, I know you two have to go, but before we go, Denise, I have one last thing I want to ask you. So, you know, we have these connections, and sometimes we feel like these echo chambers become the whole world. And it's tough times again. We're still kind of figuring out new normal, COVID, and I think for many of us, perception is reality, where this is the toughest it's ever been. There's not a lot of hope. You are somebody that has seen so much and done so much for so many of us in this room. Before I leave this conversation, I would just love, why does Denise Deisler still believe that we can do this?
That's such an easy answer for me, Mark.
I like the
I
softball.
believe that we can do this because I've got 25 years of seeing how far we've already come.
Yeah.
You know, when I first started, we weren't entertaining. We weren't having conversations about whether we might have to euthanize for space. The conversations were how many and who are we going to euthanize today? Those are the conversations that we were having. And when we were struggling to get others interested in life-saving and focused in that direction, we were a ship, no kill was a ship without a rudder. And I remember sitting down and talking to my friends, leadership at Best Friends, and said, you need to own this. Somebody needs to own this at a leadership level, because the rest of us are scrambling for support and help. We know we can do it, we're making progress, but we need a lifeline. We need somebody at a higher level with better influence to own this for us. We don't want to lead, we want to follow the effort. We went from euthanizing tens of millions of dogs and cats to less than 400,000 dogs and cats. If that doesn't give you inspiration and hope, and it was that commitment to no kill that gave birth to innovation and creativity and amazing numbers of programs and marketing and such exciting, fun things that did not exist.
Right.
And so, you know, I'll leave you with, everybody's hard is their hard. So if you've only been in this field 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it is hard, and what you feel is real. So I'm not dismissing that, please understand. But I want you to be inspired by the conference and talk to others who have succeeded and who have been through tougher times, because that is your path out. It can be done because it has been done. And it has been done how many hundreds of times? Look at the list of no-kill shelters that Julie shared with you. Yesterday morning, was that? I mean, look at how far we've come. We're not across the finish line.
Right.
And to give up now would be about the silliest thing I could ever think of. And so the question I ask you in that video we started with was amazing. We are heroes, every single one of us, in a multitude of ways, all day, every day, week in, week out. So my question is, are you a victim? Victims blame others. Victims have no control. Victims are useless and helpless. Or are you the heroes we saw in that video?
They're definitely the heroes. I know you have to go. I see some of my friends from West Texas over here. So, excuse me, South Texas. I'll see you later. Thank you so much. Hi. Jackie, Isabel, it's so great to be in Florida with you both. Welcome to the Best Friends Conference.
Thanks.
So, can you tell us, how are things going in South Texas?
South Texas is a little challenging.
Yeah?
Not gonna lie. Coming from the Midwest, I moved to Texas about 5 years ago, and it's pretty alarming to see the number of stray animals just running everywhere.
Right.
It's a little crazy.
How about you, Isabel? How are things going for you?
Well, within the last 8 months, it's been very eye-opening for us at my shelter. Working with Gulf Coast Humane Society has been an very, very big eye-opener, because before we were afraid of handling cats, dangerous dogs that we labeled dangerous or we labeled aggressive, and by them sending us help and sending us their behavioral specialists to teach us how to introduce animals or introduce ourselves to animals and becoming their friends and getting to know them to get them out has been a game changer, because before we weren't naming any of them, cats nor dogs.
And that's so interesting, because it's like, okay, so you name them, but Julie talked about this yesterday. So I think that's a really interesting and important thing. So you didn't name animals.
No.
And what's happening right now is you're starting to name animals, meaning that there is a step being forward where there is a relationship bond or something different that's happening there. Is that what you're saying, kind of?
Yes, I feel that before, when we're just like, hey, someone's interested in stray 371, and we would ask, hey, which one is that one? Because we were just numbers. And, oh, the black and white one. You know how many black and white kittens there are back there? And by giving them names like Rue, Kirby, Garfield, it gave us the initiative to be like, I want to get Rue out. I want to get Garfield out, and open our eyes to a different perspective.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. Come on. Little wins, everybody. Little stuff. All right, listen, Isabel, you strike me as a sponge. So you said that, working with Gulf Coast, and we'll get more into that in a second. Is that fair? Are you somebody that likes to learn, and why?
I do love to learn. I love to learn in different perspectives. I like to learn from people who've been through things, or people who may not have experienced what I've experienced in animal control, or even in life in general, because it gives me a broader perspective of looking at everything that I'm dealing with in a wide view rather than with horse blinders on. Because if I look at things like this, I'm never gonna be able to move forward or think that I can do, or we as a shelter can do better than what the previous outlooks of what people saw us to be.
Well, we were talking about leadership and vulnerability, and sometimes also, it's just about, sometimes bravery is just about asking questions to make sure that you know that you're supposed to be doing, right? And you are somebody that you want to make sure you do things right, but some of us have a hard time even doing that, right? I think you have examples of that, yeah?
Yes, so my example would be, I was in public works for the city of Portland before, and I was the only woman. So we had to build a 50-foot tree for our city for Christmas every year.
Right.
And they pretty much was like, here, there's this paper, put it together.
Okay.
There was never and the guys were so afraid to go and ask the city manager because she's the one that's over
Even
it.
just how to decorate a Christmas tree.
Yes, they were afraid to ask questions like, how are we supposed to do this? And I was like, guys, we have to take a step back. And, they felt like they were biting the bullet, but I felt like we were opening an open communication to what they wanted and how they perceived it to be, and how we wanted to make that come true and realistic to everybody else.
And so you were brave enough to actually say, no, we're going to make sure we do this right the first time because I don't want to do it twice. You go and ask questions, and now that person somehow might be benefiting you now in your normal role here as an ACO at your agency in Portland?
Yes, so I'm real close with my city council, our city manager, our assistant city manager, and other entities, because I've asked out and reached, I'm not afraid of asking for help. And I think that's where a lot of other people are afraid to be like, I don't want them to judge me because I don't know.
Right.
And I think by saying, yes, I want to ask for help, and just by saying, yes, I need this help, it's helped build unity and us as a whole rather than different entities.
So, Jackie, Isabel grew up on a farm in West Texas, obviously now in South Texas. You, as you said, Midwest, theater, I think is the background, and somehow you land in South Texas. And now you're at Gulf Coast Humane, which is not to be mistaken for the Gulf Coast Humane that got an award earlier. This is in Texas. Tell us about that journey. What brought you there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, being from the Midwest, my background's in performing arts. I was working in fundraising and development for these arts organizations, and I was really passionate about working with nonprofits. And when I moved to Texas, there's not a lot of arts going on in Corpus Christi right now. And so I was like, okay, I need to broaden the horizon here. And so I got my job at Gulf Coast Humane Society, and I actually thought it was temporary. I was like, you know what? I just need this job until I find something else.
Right.
And I just fell in love with it.
And you actually did. You went to Houston for a little bit, and then something brought you back, right?
Yeah, about a year after I started working at Gulf Coast, I was recruited for basically my dream job at the Alley Theater in Houston. And I was so pumped. I moved out there, I was ready to go, and I was there for a month, and I hated it.
We got into your DNA, did we?
Yes, I was just hook, line, and sinker, and so I had to come back.
So, you've told me, it's the area of Corpus, there's all these little cities. Every city has a municipal shelter, Portland being one of those, not very well funded. The counties have shelters, so there's a mass amount of these shelters that aren't always well resourced, right? Mm-hmm. And with that, even with Gulf Coast Humane, when you started, there was maybe a little bit of community rebuilding and maybe even trust. Is that fair to say? And talk us through that, and why was that reclamation project, for lack of a better word, not just about isolating yourself to inside your four walls, but also thinking about and starting a relationship with Isabel in Portland?
Yeah, so when I came on, my job was very different, the organization was very different, night and day almost. We didn't necessarily have the best reputation in the community.
Yeah.
We weren't doing a lot for the community. We were just kind of bringing animals in and adopting them out, and with strict adoption policies too. And over the last 4 years, we've had leadership changes, we've had so much growth in our programs, and we've really focused, number one, on prioritizing saving the lives off of the euthanasia list in our community, because there are so many municipalities that are euthanizing right now.
Right.
And also to serve our community better. We've really put a lot of time and energy and resources into creating sustainable programs for the people that have pets that want to keep them and love them.
So you were able to draw in a little bit more of a community ethic, which was helping you rebuild trust, and you were also helping in building relationships in the community, which I think is huge. So how specifically did things get started with Portland?
Yeah, so, we had gotten involved with Best Friends and very early on started working with our South Central team on this program when it was still pretty new. And it was something we were really excited about, and there were so many options for who we could work with first. Portland was just such a clear choice. And Isabel, she does such a great job over there. We're so happy with them.
That's awesome. So, Isabel, in this partnership, you talked about the names, which I know seems so small, but it means that it's bravery, right? Like, I'm going to actually connect myself. It's the Fido thing that Julie was talking about. Do you have another good example of what this partnership maybe brought to your team or your shelter, your local shelter there in Portland?
I feel that it's brought us closer together. A lot of the times we had like specific ACOs, like I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do cats, I'm gonna do dogs, I'm gonna do bite investigations. I think by learning how to see from the animal's perspective, not only dogs but cats, because I find that cats are afraid too, and it's a lot of people are like, no, dogs are very aggressive and very aggressive, and I feel that same thing with cats. By having them come over here and showing us like it's okay that you're seeing this, but this is why you're seeing it, and it's opened us up to being not nicer, but more connected with the animal.
Yeah, understanding that of what's happening, and maybe it's not just simply good or bad or aggressive or not. So you're a small agency, roughly about 600 annual intake, just a few people. You're the officer doing so many different things and raising the hat. And like this partnership now, I think so far this year, you've raised your save rate 16% and you're at 88%
Yes.
save rate now?
Yes.
Isn't that amazing? And Jackie, with you, you have this private organization, you're going through, you're trying to help shelters. You roughly are bringing in now 2,500 to 3,000 animals. And I think it's so simple to feel like this is a one-sided relationship, right? Like, Isabel and that team get everything, but I think your team's getting a lot too. Will you kind of elaborate on that?
Absolutely. Our team has grown a lot, not only in quantity of people, but also in the skill sets. And, we've really utilized, it's not just me,
Yeah.
I'm really not the one that's the boots on the ground. It's everybody else on our team that's going over. It's our dog behaviorist that's going and teaching them how to run play groups. It's our intake coordinator going over there and teaching them how to vaccinate cats. And, Diamond is kind of our boots on the ground main person. And I've seen so much growth in all of these people on our team because we're learning so much, not only about the municipal side of sheltering, but about advancing our knowledge of this field in general.
Yeah, and seeing different perspectives. And I think all of us are always needing to make sure we keep that flame. So now you personally, Jackie, like what has this relationship done for you?
Me personally or at work?
I mean, just professionally, whatever. Like, I mean, you obviously recognize things even if you didn't, that you wanted to do this. And I think it's about the flame, right? Like, this is hard work. but like, I'm just kind of curious, like, what have you gotten out of this?
Absolutely. I think that, I love this program. I love a lot of the programs that we're doing, and my job is really expanded beyond what it was originally intended to be. And I'm very thankful for that because it's part of the reason why I left that job in Houston. I need to be able to see, feel, witness the impact that I'm making to feel that drive to keep going. And both with Portland and this program and just in general the work that we're doing, it really drives that passion.
That's amazing. So just in general, and to close everything out, you've met and got to hear from so many of these amazing leaders. I think the biggest thing I would hope you would take away is, like Isabel, don't be afraid to say yes. Don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of it is showing that bravery enough to make sure that you're not worried about bugging people and you want to make sure that you know what you're doing right. Think about things and how you're going to keep the flame to some of your teams. If you're a Legacy Humane Society and you want to try to continue to build more character in your community, helping others is certainly a good way to kind of connect. And then when the other two leaders that we talked about a little bit earlier, vulnerability goes a long way. We don't have to know everything, and you're not alone in this. So we have each other to rely, but we also can't, to Denise's point, hold each other back by always just kind of miring in how hard this is, because you are heroes. You are dedicating, be it volunteer or staff member, portions of your life to make the lives of animals better, and the people like you who aren't in this room are benefiting, even if they're the ones fighting us the most, because right now it seems like there's no hope, but there's a lot of hope. We've come a long way. You are here. Take in this experience and this conference, and I just want to thank you so much for giving us the time today and coming to the Best Friends Conference, and enjoy your Friday.